Hi, welcome to JP Study Circle. So I request everyone to subscribe for my channel and install JP Study Circle app. Okay. So yesterday we have discussed about the topic related to Power BI architecture and we have seen about the Power BI interface. Okay. So today we'll be discussing about uh, Power Query. So how we can move from this Power BI desktop to the Power Query, and also we'll be discussing about Power Query interface. Okay. So yesterday we have seen about this, right, in the Power BI desktop. So we have seen how to get the data, how to fetch the data from the Excel. Okay. Now, how we have fetched the data? See, once you open the Power BI desktop at first point of time, see, this is the interface that you can look over here. So in that, you have a first option called as import data from Excel. That means what is meant by import? That means loading the data into your Power BI desktop. We call it as import. Okay, this is called as import. So from here, you can connect to the Excel sheet. So there is a second option called as import data from SQL Server. So if organization is large, so if they store the data in some databases like SQL, so you can click on here this import data from Excel and you can connect to the data which is stored in the SQL server by the client. And if you want to create some manual tables, so paste the data into a blank table. So within the Power BI, if you want to load your data, like if you want to create one blank table, so we can use this paste the data into a blank table. And the fourth option we can see if you after installing the Power BI desktop, there is a fourth option that you can find here, try a sample data set. What is meant by try a sample data set? That means within the Power BI desktop, see Microsoft has given some sample data set. You can click on this sample data set and you can do some analysis. See here, I'm trying here, try a sample data set. Once you click on this, you will get an option called as load sample data. Okay, load sample data. So I will click on this load sample data over here. See, there is some sample data which is related to financial. So this data which is stored internally in the Power BI desktop. And you can connect with this sample data and you can load that sample data into your Power BI desktop and you can perform the analysis. So I'm selecting this finance data. And once you select this finance data and click on the load, okay. Once you click on this load, the data will be loaded into your Power BI desktop. It will take some time. See, it is loading the data, the sample data which is there in the Power BI desktop. It is loading. See, 700 that's loaded. And yesterday we have seen when the data is loaded into your Power BI desktop and where you can see that particular data. You can see the data in here, the dead right end, you have one section, we call it as data section. Okay. In this data section, you can able to see the data over here. Okay. This is the data that you can see over here. So when you, if the table that you have loaded is, what is the table? We have loaded the financial table, right? And if you want to see what are the columns which are there in this finance table, just try to expand this table. When you try to expand this table, you can see what are the different columns which are present in this. Okay. And yesterday we have seen if you want to see what in each column, what type of the data is stored, if you want to see that, where you can come to this data section or you can come to the table view. Okay, this is the table. And once you come to the table view, you can see what are the different type of the tables, what are the different type of the columns that are stored. That columns you can find over here. Okay, the columns which are there. So these are the columns you have. It has segment, country, product column, discount, how many products are stale, manufacturing price, what is the sales price of that product, how much sales the product has made, how much discount has given for that product, sales, cost of goods sold, what is the profit, when they have sold that product, what is the month name. So these are the data that you can able to find. So within the Power BI, it will provide some sample data set. You can connect to that sample data set and you can perform some analysis. Okay, this is how the things will work. Now let us come to the home section. This is the data section, and if you from the data section, if you want to move to the report view, just you can click on this report, right? As soon as that you download the Power BI desktop, this is the Power BI desktop. Generally, this interface will look like this. Now, yesterday we have seen how to connect to the data. How we can connect to the data? To connect to the data, you need to click on where? You need to click on this get data. And if you want to say, I want to connect the data, which is a sample superstore data, I want to connect to the Excel workbook, just try to click on this Excel. In the Excel, I will go to the desktop. In the desktop, I have, or in the downloads, you can go, or you have some sample superstore data. See, sample. So there is one file called sample superstore XLS. I want to connect them. Just select this and click on open. Now that sample, so it is connecting. It is because depending upon the speed, it will try to take some time to connect the data. And you have seen over here, you have the orders table, people's table, and returns table. These are the three tables that you have. Now, if I want to load that particular tables, just what are the tables I want to load? I want to load the orders table, people's table, and the returns table. So select those tables. The tables that we have, orders table, people's table, returns table. See, if you want to load the tables, just select those tables. Once you select those tables, try to click on load. Once you click on the load, the tables will be loaded. See, it is processing the queries and it will take some time. It is loading the data from the backend. You can able to see over here. Now, slowly the data will be loaded and you can see that data will be present in this data section. See, whatever the tables that you load, that way you can find those tables that you can find in the data section. In the data section, you have orders table, you have the people's table, and you have the returns table, and you can find over here. Right. Now, right now where you are in Power BI desktop, to move from this Power BI desktop, I want to move to Power Query because in the Power BI, we have the four components. The first component, we call it as Power Query. With the help of this Power Query, you can perform some ETL transformations. So from this Power BI desktop, if I want to move to Power Query, just you can click on where Power Query, which is useful for what? It is used to transform your data. So just click on the transform data. Once you click on the transform data from the Power BI desktop, you will be moving to the Power Query. Just try to click on this transform data. Once you click on the transform data from the Power BI desktop, you are moving to the Power Query editor. Now today in this particular class, we will be discussing about what is the Power Query interface, like how this Power Query interface looks. Okay. So when you look at, just let me take the screenshot of this so that it can be easy for you to understand it. Yeah, let us look at this interface of this. Yeah. When you look at the Power Query, say I'm taking this cursor, let me take this cursor. Yeah. In the right side, you have one pane. This is the right side, you have one pane. This pane, we call it as queries pane. So what is meant by queries over here? The meaning of queries is in the Power BI, in the Power Query, instead of tables, we'll give the name called as queries. Okay, the name of queries and tables are one and the same. So what are the tables that you have loaded in the Power Query? You can find in this queries section. So this is called as query section in the Power Query. So that in the query section, you will able to find what are the tables that are loaded in the Power Query. You can find in this query section. And next one, you have in the dead right end, there is one pane, we call it as this query settings pane. This we call it as query settings pane. Query is nothing but table settings. Query is nothing but tables, right? So whatever the transformation that you make in the Power Query. So let us see some basic transformation after 1 or 2 minutes. whatever the transformations that you make, suppose if you move columns, you remove some columns, or if you remove some rows, the every step that you perform in the Power Query, it will create one step over here. Okay, so that you can find in this query settings pane, you have an option called as applied steps. What is meant by applied steps? That means this Power Query is useful for transforming your data, right? Whatever the transformations that you make in the Power Query, those transformations will be recorded here in the applied steps. Okay. For example, if I see, I will make some transformation. What is the transformation that I will make? I will select this particular segment over here. See, segment. Now, what I will do, just I will go to this transform tab. Okay. In the transform tab, there is one option called as format. Okay. So I want to convert this, all this, in the column, the characters in the column, I want to convert them into capital letters. So instead, you can go to the format section and let us click on uppercase. What happens in this particular column? All the letters are converted into uppercase. So one step we have created, one transformation you have created, right? So here, whatever the transformation that you make in the applied step, see, one step is created. The step name is uppercase test. So if I select this country, same, go to the format, I will click on lowercase. See, lowercase is one step is created. So whatever the transformation that you make in Power Query, those transformations will be recorded here in this applied steps. The transformation you can record, you can find those transformations in these applied steps. Okay, this pane we call it as query settings pane. When you look at here in this particular, see, and in the Power Query, there are many menu-based options are there. We can see here from file, you have recent source, enter data, manage, remove column, source column, sort column, replace value. So there are many menu-based options are there in the Power Query. With the help of these menu-based options, which are there in the Power Query, you can able to transform your data. So when I go here, see in the home tab, you have these many options, recent sources, data source setting. These are the menu-based options. In the transform tab also, you have this many options. When you go to the add column tab, in the add column tab also, you can see the many options are present over here. So with this help of these options, you can able to transform your data in the Power Query. So the area where this menu-based options are present, we call it as Power Query ribbon. This we call it as Power Query. This we call it as query settings pane. This table suite, the area where the tables are present, we call it as query pane. And where the applied steps are present, we call it as query settings pane. And the place where you have many menu-based options are there, we call it as Power Query ribbon. Power Query ribbon. Okay, this in the Power Query ribbon, you have menu-based options. With that menu-based option, you can transform your data which is loaded over here in the Power Query. And when you look at over here, see, there is one pane, we call it as formula pane. See, this one, FX here, right? This we call it as formula pane. So what every menu based option, that every menu that you click over here, backend, this Power Query will be writing some formula at the backend. So that pane we call it as formula pane. And the language that you are using over here in the Power Query, we call it as mashup language. When you see over here, suppose I will make some basic transformation. What is the transformation? I will go to the order table and I will try to create I will try to remove this. See, remove rows. In the remove rows, I will try to in the transform tab, like home tab, remove columns. I will try to remove this row ID column. See, if I want to remove this first column, try to select that particular column. Okay, try to select that particular column. Right. Okay. I'm selecting, try to select this particular column over here. And if you want to delete this column, you can go to the choose column. In the choose remove column, in the remove column, just try to click on remove column. So one column is removed. I already said the step, every step that you perform in the Power Query, that step will be recorded over here, where in applied step. In applied step, one step is created called as removed column. But you have performed, you have played with the menu based option, but back end at the Power Query, it is writing one formula. See, it has removed the column. That means which column it is removed? Row ID. So row ID column is previously removed, right? So if you want to, in that way at the back end, it is writing the code. Okay. Just you have played with the menu based option, you have clicked on the remove column. But what Power Query is doing at the back end, it is writing code by itself. Okay, the code that this Power Query is writing at the back end, we call it as M code, or simply we can call it as mashup language, M code or mashup language. Right. And now you have made the transformation. You can ask me how we can go to the previous step, one step back, how you can go to the one step back that you perform. See, for every step it has created, right? If you remove this step, you can go back to the previous step. So I have created, if you click on this remove column, again, row ID will start appearing over here. Just I will click on this removed column over here. You can see the row ID is appearing over here. Okay. This is how this formula pane will works. So by default, you will on this formula pane. So if you want to remove that formula pane, if you don't want that formula pane to appear, you can go to the view section. In the view section, there is an option called as formula bar. If you disable this formula bar, see, you will not able to see any that formula at the back. But by default, you will able this formula bar to see that the backend, how the coding is executed at the backend when you play with the menu based options in the Power Query. Now let us see uh, what are the panes that we have discussed. In the Power Query, we have the left side, we have query pane. In the right side, we have the query setting pane. And for formula, this is called as formula pane. And at the top, you have Power Query ribbon. And when you look at this at the center part where it is displaying the data over here. So when you look at here at the center part, when you look at this center part, okay, where the data results are displayed, where the data is displayed, this space we call it as display pane, or this pane we call it as data pane. The center part we call it as data pane. See here, row ID, order pane, ship date, and ship mode. So the data which is present in the table is displayed, right? So this we call it as display pane, okay, or it is displaying the results which are present in the pane, or simply we call it as results pane. Okay. And now at the down, when you look at a down, you can able to see the different type of C here at the tool. Here you can see the 20 column one toolbar taskbar will be there. You can see about how many columns and how many rows are there. So this is the general uh, interface of the Power Query. So what are the things that we have seen in the Power Query? So let us write so that it will be easy for you to understand. Let us recall what are about the Power Query interface. Okay. In the Power Query interface. So the first one we call it as here that we have seen where the queries are loaded. We call it this as query pane, right? The first one we call it as query pane. So right now we are discussing the topic. What is the topic that we have discussing? Power Query interface. And second at the right end, what is this query? We call it as second one query setting. Query setting. And this one we call it as formula bars. And where the menu based options are present, what we are discussed, we call it as Power Query ribbon. And the fifth one, where the results are displayed, we call it as results pane. or we can call it as display pane, or simply we call it as a results. Now let us discuss some basic transformation in the Power Query. Okay, so see, this is the applied steps where the steps are recorded. And when you look at this applied steps, there will be four parts will be there. First one we call it as source. That means this source will gives like where your data is actually coming from. So the sample superstore data Excel that you have stored, it is coming from where it's Janardhan in the I have downloads. In the download section, I have the sample superstore XLS. From that, I'm loading the data into the Power Query. So the source information will give us about what from where you are connecting this data. Okay. Next one, it will help you this navigation from the source table. In that particular table here, orders from the source, you have a sample superstore data. This is coming that this data is coming from which table? Orders table. This data is coming from which table? It's people table. This data is coming from this returns table. So this it will give about in the orders table. This navigation will give us about from where the data is coming. Here it is coming from the orders table. Okay. Now let us discuss the concepts before going to understand about this Power Query interface. The first let us see menu based. What are the different menu based options which are there in the home tab? So when you look at Power Query, we have four options, like four tools we have here. That here home, you have some options. In the transform, you have many options. In the transform tab, in the add column, you have this many options. In the view tab, we'll be having this many options are there. So let us go tab by tab. In the home tab, how the different types of these options are helpful in transforming your data. So first of all, there is first option you can see as new source. Okay, what is meant by new source? New source means we have seen how to connect the data from Power BI desktop. So there is also another way from Power Query also we can directly connect to the data source. This is the Power Query. I want to connect the data from Power Query, right? Here I want to connect another table. Just we have load sample superstore data. Now I want to load another Excel file. So how you can click on this new source? If I want to connect to the new Excel sheet, just click on this Excel sheet, Excel workbook. Now I want to load some data like I want to load this column date dimension table. So Excel sheet which is present over here in the download section, there is a Excel with the name of date dimension. I want to load this particular Excel file. Select this Excel file and click on open. So now the data will be directly loaded into the Power Query. You can ask me where you can find this data within the Power Query. I already told, like at the dead right end, you have an pane called as query section. That queries are nothing but pane, like queries are nothing but the tables. You can find the tables over here. Just try to select this table, okay, dimension date, and click on OK. See, this dim underscore date table will be appear here in this query pane or table. So this is how you can load the data or directly into the Power Query. So after that, there is an option called as recent sources. What is meant by recent sources? That means what are the sources that you have connected recently? If you want to see at a glance, you can click on this recent source. So what are the sources that you have connected? I have connected at the starting of the class, I connected to the sample superstore data. Now I have connected to dim underscore date, right? These are the two sources that I have connected. Just if you click on recent sources, you can see date dimension XLS table. Just I have loaded. And at the beginning of the class, I have loaded sample underscore superstore data. And previously, in the previous batches, I loaded some data on fraud detection, industrial group, country, and content. So whatever the data sources that have connected recently, that if you want to see at a single glance, you can see at this recent sources. And after that, you have a third option called as enter data. We have seen how to load the data or how to load the Excel files where you have stored somewhere in the downloads or desktop. But the thing is, if you want to create some tables manually, So if you want to create the tables manually within the Power BI, you can click on this enter data. With the help of the data, enter data, you can manually create some tables. So let us see, click on this enter data over here. You will get an option called as column 1 and column 2. Just if you want to give the names for that particular column, I want a column name. Okay, I want to give it as a name. Just I want to store some of the names name, and I want to give some mobile number or something mobile. So like I want to give Janardhan and giving some random names and giving some random mobile like South Indian, giving just random Ramya like Jyoti. Yes. So just you can give the column name and you can give the headers that column names. And if you want to name, if you don't, just if you click on OK, so the table will be created, manual table will be created by the name of this table only. But if you want to change that name, I want to name this table as contact information. Contact information. Just type as a contact information and click on OK. So a manual table will be created by the name of contact information. So this is the table that you have created manually, Janardhan, Saujanya, Ramya, Jyoti, and mobile number. So this is how you can create some manual tables within the Power Query. So to create the manual tables, you can click on this enter data. We have other options called as data source setting, manage parameters. So this will be coming, we'll be discussing after 2 or 3 classes. Now, there is another option, we call it as refresh preview. Let us discuss about this refresh preview and refresh all. So what is the difference between refresh preview and refresh all? Okay. Suppose if you connect to the data source, let's see here we have the orders table, okay, and people's table and returns table. So yesterday we have discussed some basic transformation, right? In the people and returns table. What is the problem with this particular data? You have the person name and region. This person name and region, they should move to the actually columns. They are the column headers, but they are represented here in the first row. You know the person. These are the names of the persons. These are the names of the region. But now I want to move this to the headers. So how you can just you can click on you can on the home tab you have an option called use first row as headers. Try to click on use first row as headers. Now this person and region will move over in the top and they have moved from first row to the headers. Same if you want to the returns table. This returns and order ID, actually these are the column headers. Now I want to move this, actually these are the column headers, but these are represented in the form of first row. Okay, in the first row, returned as you know, these are the column headers because return, the product is returned yes or no. Order ID, these are the order ID. But these should be represented at the top by the column name. But the Power Query, in the Power Query, it has failed to recognize them as a column names. Power Query failed to recognize them as the column names. But you should not do the transformation as it is. You need to look at these columns and see whether these column headers are assigned perfectly. But there is a mismatch that is return and order ID. Actually, these are the column headers, but they are represented as a first row. Now you can come here and you can fix the issue and use first row as headers. See, for every step that you make over here, see it is creating one step in the applied step. Okay. This is how you need to make the transformation. Now, the thing is, let me go to the see in the returns table, what happens in the people's table, you see, I want to add some data to the people's table. Okay. I want to add the data to the people's table. So from where you have connected this, you have connected from the download section, right? So try in the downloads, we have a file called as what is the file name? Sample superstore data. What I will do, I will go to the download section and I will try to add some data. In the download section, what is it? We have seen about sample superstore data, right? Sort, I will try to in the place of alphabetic order. So here there are a lot of the files, but let us see where is sample superstore data is there. Yeah, this is a sample superstore data, I think. Like this way. I'm opening this sample superstore data. See, when you closely observe, you can able to see the sheets which are present in this Excel sheet. They will be in the Power BI. They will be represented as columns. See, this is the orders table, right? Orders table. And if you want to see the headings over here, see row ID, order date. These are represented over here in the same. That when you go to the Power BI, when you go to the Power BI over here in the order table, so you can see row ID, order date. Okay, like this you can able to see over here. In the same way, in the Excel also, that is the Excel that we have stored. See order date, ship mode. So the sheets which are present in the Excel, you can find here as a tables in the Power BI. Okay, orders. Now what I will do, I will go to this people section over here and I will try to add one more region. Like I will add my name, Janardhan. So some north region is missing over here. I will try to select north. Okay. Once you let and try to click on Control yes. So save the file. It is file is saved. Okay. Saves us. Now what I will do, let me come over here in the people's table. Let me pull over here. In the people's table. Come to home. I will select this people table over here. Click on the refresh and click on some refresh all or something. Refresh all. Data from the Microsoft data and just cannot write the file or it's already open. It's by the user. You need the permission to view or write this data. So there is something problem with this data. Let me try to close this. I will try to delete this data over here. Orders table. People's table. I'm trying to delete this data and I will try to load again. Yeah. So let me connect to the new source. What I will do, connect to the Excel sheet. In the desktop, I will collect the sample superstore data and open this. I'm loading this orders table, people's table, returns table. These three tables that I have selected, I'm loading. See, the tables are loaded over here. So I will try to fix this headers. Okay. Use first row as header. In the returns table also, I will try to this use first row as headers. Right. And if you want to save any changes, okay, that you have made, if you want to save changes, what I've said, you need to click on close and apply. Once you click on close and apply, your changes will be saved. Okay, see, it is loading. That means whatever the changes that you want to make, if you want the changes to be saved in the Power Query, then you need to click on close and apply. Once you click on close and apply only, your changes saved. Again, you can go over here. So now from Power Query, you will come to Power BI Desktop. Now again from Power BI Desktop, if you want to go Power Query. So usually once you install the Power BI Desktop, it will interface will be looking like this. But now as we are studying about Power Query as a first topic, if somebody wants to move from Power BI Desktop to Power Query, So Power Query is useful for transforming your data, right? Just you can click on this transform data. Once you click on the transform data, you can come over here and you can come to Power Query. So if you make any changes in the Power Query and if you want to save the changes, make changes, you need to click on close and apply. Once you click on close and apply, you can go back to the Power BI desktop. From Power BI desktop, if you want to come to Power Query, you need to click on the transform data. Because why I'm repeating these words? Because initially, while you don't download the Power BI desktop, people are often confusing how we are moving from Power BI desktop to Power Query and how we are moving back from Power Query to Power BI desktop. Okay. Initially, once you download, Power BI desktop interface will be appearing to you. There, if you click on transform data, you will come to Power Query editor. Play with the data, make some changes. If you want to save the changes, click on close and apply. Once you click on close and apply, again you will go back to the Power BI desktop. From there, if you click on transform data, you will come here. Okay, so this thing that you need to do. Now, what I will do. So here, sample superstarter that we have loaded, right? I'm opening it. It is opening actually in the WPS. That is the problem, that it is not updating. Okay, give me some general thing. I have added some name. But why this error is coming? Yes, I don't know. It should not reflect this error message. Microsoft Access cannot be opened. It is already opened by another user. You need to permission to view or go to the. Okay, I will try to reinstall my WPS. So I will explain tomorrow how to explain this. What is the difference between refresh view and refresh? The thing is, I will try to explain the concept, and I will see why. Because this red color should not appear. There is a problem. There is not problem with the Power Query, but there is something with the data refresh issue. It is to my WPS. I will try to check. But the thing is, first we need to understand what is the difference between both these two: refresh preview and refresh all. Okay. Refresh preview means if I select this particular table or people table, and if you click on refresh preview, only that table will be refreshed. Only that table will be refreshed. But if you come over here and instead of refresh preview, if I click on refresh all, the entire table will be refreshed. So the data which is present in the entire table will be refreshed when you click on the refresh all. Okay. That is they will in the interview they will ask what is the difference between refresh preview and refresh all. The difference is if you select any particular table, if you click on refresh preview, only that data which is present in the data will be refreshed. And if you select any one of the table, and if you try to click on refresh all, the entire data set will be refreshed. Okay. So there is some error which is having the refresh. I will try to fix it out because my Excel license has been expired. Okay, here we need the permission required. So I need to have install some cracked version so that the refresh will happen pop-up. Okay, it is due to my Microsoft issue. I need to renew my license. Okay, that is the reason it is not refreshing properly. But today I try to renew it. Okay. Now let us see other menu-based options. In the see if you want to delete any table, you have the different type of the table. I want to delete this table. Just you click on the delete. Okay. So if you click on the delete, the table will be deleted. Okay. Now this refresh preview and refresh all, what they will ask the difference, what is refresh preview and refresh all means entire data If is refresh, we call it entire tables are refresh, we call it as refresh all. And if you want to refresh any specific table, we can click on refresh preview. So what is the reason when we go for refresh preview and refresh all? Because here, if you click on refresh all and refresh preview, it's not a problem because we have only 4 or 5 tables. But when some real-time projects comes into the picture, if you have some tables, some hundreds of 50 tables, out of hundreds or 150 tables, you are enough confident that only data in the only 2 tables are changing, and remaining inside the table, the data is not changing. So in that case, instead of refreshing the entire table, you will select the tables where the data is changing frequently, and you will try to refresh that. Then, then the refresh process will takes very easy. So it is very simple. If you are loading the 100, refreshing 100 tables is easy, or refreshing only 2 tables is easy. Because data size in the 2 table data size is less, so the refresh will happens very fast. Here, you will not find that much difference in the refresh because you have only 5 tables where you are having the rows more than 10,000 or 2 or 3,000. But in the real time, you will store the data, you will work on a data where you have work on some lakhs of rows. In that condition, you should not refresh entire data set at a time. It will take a lot of time. So in that type of the table, there will be 2 types of the tables actually. Some tables we call it as static tables, and some tables we call it as dynamic tables. So when you look at generally in the data, when you look at the table types, you need to understand this concept. So the first tables we call it as static tables, and the second we call it as dynamic tables. So what is meant by static table means the data inside the tables will not remain change. So it will remain constant. Those tables we call it as static tables. So when you look at this, some tables there is called as dynamic tables. That means the data inside that will change frequently. For example, you can see when I look at the orders table, suppose think this as a dynamic data. So for every order it will generate order ID. For every order it will generate some order date. That means this is a transactional data. So this data will be updated very frequently. Okay, so this is the dynamic table. So every time the static table and dynamic table, while refreshing all or refresh preview, we'll try to refresh only the dynamic tables. Okay, because in that particular tables, the data is updating frequently. The static means for months or if the data is not changing and if data is remains constant, it will not make any sense to refresh those tables. Suppose you have 100 tables, out of 100 tables in 98, you have the static tables and you have only 2 tables. Now, if I ask you to refresh, if you click on refresh all, what happens? It will go and refresh all these 100 tables. But there is no use of refreshing this because static tables, anyway, the data is remaining constant and you have only 2 dynamic tables. The smart way is to select those dynamic tables where the data is changing frequently and you can click on this refresh preview. Select the 2 tables, one table, click on refresh preview. If contact information is changed, select the table and click on the refresh preview and those 2 tables will be a data will be get updated. And remaining you are enough confident that those are static tables, and if you don't refresh also it is not a problem. Okay, so that is the difference between the static tables and dynamic table and refresh preview and refresh all. Now there is another options which are there, we call it as choose columns and remove columns. So we can look at properties, advanced editor, manage options also. So let us see what is meant by in the orders table. Let us look at the properties over here. See, the properties means it will give about what is the tables it has, name, order table. In this properties, if you want to describe the tables, if you want to write any tables, information of this table. So if you want, you can write this order table contains information regarding order ID, order date, ship date, customer ID. And if you want to write any description of the table and click on OK. So once any new user open this table, he can able to see what type of that data is stored inside that. For that, it will help the properties. Okay. So if you make any changes and click on close and apply, so that changes will be applied over here and that data will be request. Okay. From here, if you want once you click make any changes from the Power Query, if you click on close and apply, where you will go from the Power Query, you will go to the Power BI desktop. Okay, from Power BI. Again, from Power BI desktop, if you want to come to Power Query, just you click on this transform data. Once you click on the transform data, you can come back to the Power Query. Okay, right. Now let us see some options over here. What are the options that you can see? See, in the Home tab, you have an option called as Manage. What is meant by manage? That means with the help of this manage, you can delete the table, you can duplicate the table, and you can create one reference table. Okay, let us see what is meant by delete. So if you want to delete this particular table, you have the contact information. This is a manual table that we created by using the entire data. Now, if I want to delete this table, you can right click and you can delete from here. That is the one way you can delete the table. Or you can click on the contact information. In the contact information, go to the manage and click on the delete. Once you click on the delete, okay, it will throw you a warning. Are you sure that you want to delete the contact information? Then if once you click on yes, this contact information will be deleted. Okay, right. Now you click, this is C, delta tip. Now, in the manage also in the home tab, there is one other option called as let me go to the orders table. In the orders table, there is an option called as delete duplicate table. So what is meant by duplicate table? If you want to duplicate this table, orders table, if you want to create another duplicate table of the orders table, you can directly click on this duplicate. So one order with the same order table, one duplicate table will be created. So here you can go to the manage options or directly you can here, if you click on right click, so there is an option called as duplicate. From here also you can create one duplicate table or you can also create that duplicate table from the manage options. From manage, if you try to click duplicate, see one duplicate is created. It will. So this data it is showing some error because it is having some data issue with this. Okay. But only thing is if you want to create one table from that, if you want to create the duplicate, any duplicate table, you can click on the duplicate. Okay. So it is having some micro access. Just, it is having my license issues. It's a problem. Let me delete this. So in the there is a two types of the tables. Like once you go to the orders table, you have an option called as duplicate. You have the reference table. So what is meant by duplicate and the reference table? We can discuss. Like I will explain you what is the difference between the duplicate table and what is the difference between the reference table and source table. Okay. But as of now, let us see the basic transformations which are there. But the things which are involving the refresh part, because once I renew my license, and it's better that we can able to understand more better because now whatever the refresh that I am making any changes, it is throwing the errors. It is due to the renewal of my Excel license. Now, second thing is in the orders table. Let us see some transformations over here. Like let me close this table. Yeah, in the orders table. See, yeah, choose columns. There is an option called a choose column. So what is meant by choose column? So these are the columns that you have, and if I want to go to the particular column like customer ID or customer name or segment, customer name column, segment column. So you can click on choose column. Okay, this is a choose column. In this particular column, what happens if I want to, out of all these columns, you have these many columns, right? My requirement is I don't want all these columns. I want only first three columns, row ID, order ID, order date. So you can say row ID, order ID, order date. I want to select only this column. Just try to click on OK. See any transformations. Okay, let me load the start table from the beginning. Or let me open this. I will try to close this Power BI desktop. Don't save. Okay. I will try to open the new one. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let us load the data again. So instead of using that, we can use the sample data, which is already loaded it in the Power BI desktop. Then it will become easy for, yeah. So once you open here, see, I will use this sample data set instead of using my Excel. What I will do, I will try to use this system. Yeah, let's use this sample data set. Yeah, once you click on sample data, just try to load the sample data over. Okay. So when you click on the load sample data, instead of connecting the external site, we'll try to connect this financial data, which is provided by the Microsoft within the Power BI. Now let's try to load the data over here. Okay, you are loading the sample data instead of connecting the Excel sheet. You are loading the sample data over here and see this showing. See, when the data is loaded, that you can find over here in the financial. The data is stored over here. Now, if you want to see that particular data, just open this file. Okay. See, this is the data which is there over here. Okay. Now, I want to go to the, from here, I want to go to right where in the file section you have. Now, I want to go to the Power Query, right? From the Power BI desktop, in the Power BI desktop, if I want to go to the Power Query, just you can click on what? Transform data. Once you click on the transform data, you can come over to the into Power Query, right? See, now let us see if this is a finance table. Go to manage, click on duplicate. See, now it is duplicating. See, a duplicate is created because I'm using the internal data. The external in the WPS, I have some issue with my Excel file. That's why the data is not refreshed properly. But now it's not a problem. I'm using the data which is there within the Power BI. So finance data. From here, it has created duplicate, right? So financial table I created. I'm renaming this as financial. I'm renaming it as duplicate. Duplicate. Now the finance from the finance table, I will try to click on this is manage. There is one table called reference. Click on reference. So here one that table is created. I'm renaming this as reference. So the first table which is there, as it is a source, I will rename this as source for our better understanding. Now what is the difference? First we have a source table. From that I have created duplicate table. And from the source table also I have created one reference table. First, you need to understand what is the difference between this duplicate and what is the difference between this reference. Okay. See. Now, duplicate table means this duplicate table will serve as an independent table. That means, suppose in the source table, if I make any changes, that will not reflect in the duplicate table. Suppose in the source table, what I will take, I will select this. I will click on remove other columns. Remove other columns means, what is meant by remove other column? It will retain the column that you have selected and it will, the column which is selected, it will be there itself and all other columns will be deleted. See. So segment has selected, remove other, all other columns are removed. A step is created. What you have made that in source table. Now go to the duplicate table, whether the changes will reflect in the duplicate table. Go ahead. See, these changes are not reflecting here. What is the reason? Because from the source table, you have created one duplicate table, right? Duplicate table is an independent table. That means whatever, that means it will function as some separate table or independent table. Whatever the changes that you make in the source table, that changes will not be reflected in the duplicate table because duplicate table is an independent table. But you have made these changes, go to the reference table. See, in the reference table, the changes are reflected where you have deleted this data, right? So that you have deleted the data, that changes is not reflecting the duplicate table, but it is reflecting the reference table. The reason means reference means that this reference table is referenced from the source table. That's why the changes that you make in the source table that will be reflected in the reference table, but not the duplicate table. Okay. Now, if come to the source table and you remove the columns again, see again the columns got back. Now go to the reference table whether the changes are reflected, whether it will get the full columns. See. But source table, this reference table will depend on the source table. But what I will do, I will make some changes in reference table, whether it will reflect the source table. From reference table is depend on the source table. Okay, but source table is not depend on the reference table. Reason being, suppose I make the changes here. Here, I will click on remove other columns. So I made the changes in the reference table. Now go and in the source table, whether the changes will be reflected. The changes will not reflected. See, it will contain all. Reason being, you have derived this reference table from source table. That means if you make any changes in the source table, that will be definitely reflect in the reference table. Reference table. But if you make any changes in the reference table, that changes will not reflected in the source table. Reason being, reference table is depend on the source table, but not source table will not is not depend on the reference table. Now come to the reference table, remove other columns. Again, you can get back over here. Okay, that is the difference between source table, duplicate, and reference table. But whatever they will ask, what is the difference between duplicate and reference? Duplicate table means it serves as independent table. If you make any changes in the source table, that will not reflected in the duplicate table. They will ask if you make any changes in the source table, whether it will reflect in the reference table. Yes, because reference table is dependent on the source table. And in order to confuse you, they will ask, I made the changes in the reference table, whether the changes will be detected in the source table. The answer is no. Because reference table is dependent on the source table, but source table is not dependent on the reference table. If you want to see, you can go to this view section. I will explain you in the query dependencies in the next class. How, see, this is the source file. If you make any changes in the source file, it will differ in the source. From source table, see, source to reference it is there. That means if you make any changes in the source table, it will be reflected in the reference table. But the arrow is not in upward direction, not reference to source, it is not there. Arrow is pointing from source to reference. That means any changes you make in the source, that will look in the reference. But if arrow is pointing bidirectional, if you make any reference, it would have changed the source. But when you, this is a source table, this is a duplicate table, there is no connection between these two tables, right? So if you make in the source table, the duplicate table, it will not make any changes because both there is no connection between these two tables. Okay. This is how the logic that you need to understand. Okay. And hope you understand the session. And tomorrow you will be discussing with the remaining class. Okay. Is everything is clear? Is it clear? Okay, fine. Let us stop the session here, and tomorrow we'll be discussing in the next class. We'll be discussing about the remaining topics. Thank you.